Hello everyone. In this video, we're going to talk about sketch geometries again. In the previous video, we talked about drawing lines. In this video, we're going to talk about the rectangles and arcs. As you might have noticed, by drawing lines, you can create a rectangle as well. But we also have the rectangle feature in Autodesk Inventor and many other CAD software. It's the same thing, whichever software you use. And it's pretty commonly used, of course. It saves time. You don't have to draw each individual line to create a rectangle. So to draw a rectangle, let's create a new sketch and select XY plane again. Pan here so we have more space to work with. Now I can right click and select 2-point rectangle. And then I can select the origin point. As if you watched the previous videos, this green color means that it is going to apply constraint. So this point of the rectangle will be, attached to the original origin point. And then if I click that point, I can start drawing the rectangle. I can zoom in and out as I'm drawing it. I haven't, clicked again. When I click again, it's gonna create a rectangle, but I can pan, I can zoom in and out as I'm creating it. Now say that we want to create a 60 by 40 rectangle. Right now, the length is highlighted with dark blue color. Using my numpad, I can enter 60 here and hit tab on the keyboard and enter 40 here and hit enter. And it is going to create a fully constrained, fully defined rectangle. As you can see, it applied the horizontal constraint with this line, and this line is parallel to this line, and this line is parallel to this line, and it applied the dimensions as I entered them. I right click and hit OK and exit that command. So now I can finish this sketch, and as you noticed that as I finished the sketch, for some reason it brought me to this bottom left corner of the rectangle. As we mentioned in the previous videos, I can double click the middle mouse button and that will center the sketch in on the screen. So now I can extrude this and create a 3D object, which I just, instead of using lines, this time I used a rectangle to create a 3D object. So let's use that for something. As we said, we want this tutorial to be practical. So let's design, say, a phone case. Let's look at a phone case. So So let's maybe look at images. Yeah, something like something simple phone case, like something like this, right? It's got it's a rectangle shape, but it has round edges. So let's create something like that. So for that, I guess, again, it's not going to be exact dimensions, but let's make this 100 millimeters. I just clicked on the dimension and it's too long. So let's make it maybe 80. Okay, 80 by 40. Again, we're not worried about the exact dimensions right now, but we are trying to, you know, just we're trying to exercise together as we go through these features in Inventor. So I created the rectangle that's 80 by 40 now, and I can extrude that. Say we want this to be 10 millimeter uh, tall. See if that looked realistic. It's a bit too thick. I can double click on the extrusion, make that maybe 8 millimeters thick. Okay, so now this, well, instead of a phone case, let's make a phone then. We can make the phone case after that. So for example, if we look at an iPhone, uh, okay, so something like this, right? Obviously, it's a rectangle and it's got round edges. So do something like this, right? So we created the rectangle, and now we're going to use some arcs to create those edges. Again, there's so many other methods to do this. We can use fillets and we can use all kinds of other things to do this, but we are trying to cover arcs. So let's right click and new sketch, and let's use this face to sketch on. So let's click on this. Again, it's not centered on the screen, so I'm going to double click middle mouse button, and let's click on arc on the top left corner. So let's select a point and this on this edge, and now let's select another point on this edge, and let's just drop it here. Uh, right now, I know we did not cover the dimensions, but we can right click and dimension this point to this point, for example. We can give it a dimension. And also, like, we can, of course, like make this tangent to this line. And also we can make this tangent to that line. And let's give it a dimension. I right clicked, clicked on dimension, and selected this point with this point. Let's give this 12 millimeters. Now it is fully defined. Again, we can use so many different methods to do this, but we're intentionally doing this the uh, kind of long way to do it, but let's keep doing the same thing. Select this line and this line, uh, drop it there, and then use the tangent here, here, and then here, here, and then let's apply this dimension 12 millimeters. And then let's apply another one, tangent here, our arc feature. Select that line, select this line, and then let's tangent this arc to this line. Well, it did not like that. It already applied that. Okay. Okay, let's, yeah, it already applied that. So here, that is tangent now. Right click, general dimensions, and 12 millimeters. Again, our final arc here. I selected the wrong thing. I canceled out of that command. Select this line, and then click OK. And now let's just make this tangent to this line, and then tangent to this line. And now general dimensions and 12 millimeters. So we created 4 arcs with a 12 millimeter radius, and we're going to, we just use general dimensions. I know we haven't covered that. We'll talk about it in more detail later. We did this, and we're just going to do sketch. Now we can do extrude. Under extrude, like we can use extrude to create material. Also, we can use it to cut material. So we can just select cut, but now it doesn't know which part of the case we want to cut. Sorry, phone. So now let's cut this part, this part, this part, this part. And if I select through all, it's just gonna make sure that it cuts the entire material on its path. So let's click on this. Okay, so it looks like a phone. It's a bit too thick. We can always go back to this extrusion and double click and make that maybe 5 millimeter. And now it looks too round. So I want to go back to this extrusion, double click on that sketch, maybe change this to 8 millimeters, change this to 8 millimeters, 8 millimeters, 8 millimeters, finish sketch. Okay, that looks more like it, right? So of course, I think the phone screen is a little bit elevated. So let's do that. So let's select this, and just like we can right click and click on new sketch and select this feature, I'm going to exit from that command. We can do the same thing by clicking here and select create sketch on this shortcut menu. And then again, it just moves the whole design and centers the origin point. That's why it's doing it. I can double click on the middle mouse button and then center the design and on the screen. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the offset feature. So we can just select, oops, I can't select it. Why? Because there's no sketch to offset from. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create project geometry. Project geometry is basically take advantage of the existing geometry to create a sketch. So I can just select this entire area. Now it will project all these fillets, all these arcs and all this rectangle, everything I created, it's going to project all those lines. And now I can offset from that. I can just say, for example, 1 millimeter offset. Now it created this other sketch, offset it from the outer sketch by 1 millimeter. And then let's close that. And now extrude that by, say, just a quick 0.5 millimeter. Okay. So now I can even change the color of this and make this, say, gray. And then I can select this part and I can make it black. Does that look like it? Let's see. Yeah. Well, of course, we don't have a lot of details, but it looks like a phone. So we can just, of course, design the whole thing and make it look very realistic. But right now, we're just using these uh, real-time 3D objects to go over some of the features that we can use in sketch geometries. But basically what we covered is we used a rectangle. We created a rectangle. We assigned length and width to the rectangle and we extruded that. And then we used arcs. So let's delete all of this and talk about some of the cool stuff that we can do with the arcs. So let's create a new sketch and XY plane and move it here and click on two-point rectangle, and we can do all of this, right? You know, that's what we did in the first place. But instead of doing that, we can use the rectangle menu and create a 3-point rectangle. So for example, I can just click this, create one line here, and then another line here. Now it constrained these lines, but of course the length and the height are not constrained. So it's a rectangle that is moving in space. Uh, the length and width can change, but I can create a rectangle like that. So let's undo that. Or I can use my favorite 2-point rectangle, 2-point center rectangle. I particularly love this one because it gives you this symmetry, which helps a lot when you work with complex geometries. You can select the origin point, and then you can create a rectangle by using that origin point as a reference. As you click again, it creates these construction lines as references, and now you can dimension the length and dimension the width. Now you have your rectangle. And let's delete these and then look at the other options. You have the 3-point center rectangle. Again, it's just pretty self-explanatory, but let's use that too. So if I select on this and then do that, I can create a rectangle like this. And again, I can dimension the whole thing. You can do a slot. So I can select one line, second line, and I can just create a slot like that. And you can, again, you have different versions of creating slots, and you can create like a 3-point arc slot and polygons and everything. We're going to use all of these options in the future, but most commonly used ones are rectangle, 2-point rectangle, and 3-point center rectangle and slot option. So let's undo all of this again and go back to the beginning. Let's create a new sketch and XY plane. So I just wanted to mention one more thing before we move forward. And you have other options to create the arcs as well. Most commonly used ones are 3-point arcs, and you can create tangent arcs, of course. And you can, again, move your cursor there and leave it there, and then you can see the preview of that. You can kind of play with it, but again, we can go over them in the future as we use the arc option as we create actual geometries and realistic parts. But this is right now, knowing the 3-point arc will be sufficient. Another thing that I wanted to mention before we end this video, creating arcs by, while drawing lines. We did not talk about that as we covered drawing lines. So if I draw a line here, if I, let's say, draw my second line here, my third line, again, is a straight line. But I don't want this to be a straight line. I want this to be an arc. What I can do is I can come to this endpoint and hold the left mouse button, and that's going to start creating an arc. Actually, it's going to start creating a circle. So you can create the arc like this. And then that's going to find, of course, you can find the midpoint of that arc you're creating. You can make the arc smaller, bigger, you can make it longer. So you can use the arc feature as you're creating, um, as you're drawing the lines as well. So go ahead and try to use the arcs and rectangles to create some geometries. Again, in this video, we just created a simple iPhone. We didn't really pay attention to the actual dimensions and specifications. We just created something that looked like an iPhone. In the future, we can create an iPhone, and of course, we're gonna cover how to create maybe additional components and accessories for iPhone, and we can make a maybe phone case for the iPhone. But again, rectangles and arcs and lines are commonly used in Autodesk Inventor or any other CAD software. So just to, again, in this video, just to be familiar with it, just to know how they are used in the future, we will be using them frequently. Thank you.